This is the Women on Boards Forum, which we have every year. And we have a very, difficult time for many boards. So many issues coming all at once. The CEOs talked about it this morning, how they would lead. But you all know a CEO can't and shouldn't make that decision by herself or himself. This is something where board input, especially a good board, should have also their own input. They have to vote, they have to approve, they could disapprove, or they could provide another path. So why this is important is because the same issues that face the CEOs face the board. There's the climate change. Oh, God, it's ongoing. You know, if you turn on the TV, you have the fires, you have the floods, you have the extreme heat, etc., that affect your workers, your clients, your subsidiaries in other countries, all your stakeholders. And, you know, what's interesting is that you may have green policies in place, you may have climate change policies in place, but you can never predict when a disaster happens. And all of a sudden, your plant, your workers in a certain place are endangered. Or a supplier goes kaput, you know, in your supply chain. Supply chains during COVID, people discovered to be extremely important. Where they are, who they are, matters enormously. So you have that. You have this whole tariff, threat. One day here, next day not there. How much is it? Is it 10%? Is it 25%? How do you plan for it? How do you react to it? Because the cost of either your every part of your supply chain to produce something will be impacted, or how you deliver something, right? If you happen to be DHL. And so then you have the eternal conflicts, the geopolitical conflicts that keep going on, and that seem to be expanding. And for those who are on the boards of multinational companies, that is a huge issue. How do you react? So some of these are new, but there are others that are old issues. They're just much more impactful this time, like the climate change impact. So the difference this time is all of these issues are coming all at once. The workplace has changed, right? You've got people working as in Commerzbank, some at home, some in the office, some 3 days hybrid, or totally in person, the change definition of workplace. And then there is this backlash against inclusion and diversity that affects how you recruit, how you retain employees. So all of this, all at once. So, the question is, how do you deal with it? And so this panel will hopefully give us some guidelines and also their own reactions. So let me begin by introducing each one. This is Ana Ramirez from Mexico, and she's on several boards. One is Risco. Why don't you tell them, what are the other boards that you're on?
Well, Risco and Finestra Blue are my own companies, but I'm serving as a independent board member within a bank, Bancoppel, and the largest leasing company in Mexico, which is Engine Capital, and also the largest transportation company in Mexico, which is TIP Mexico.
TIP Mexico. So 2 large companies as independent director.
And a bank.
And a bank, right. Okay, welcome. And Daniela? Is it working? No.
My background is legal and banking mainly, 30 years as an attorney, as a partner with Clifford Chance and with a number of banks. I sat on the board of BNP Paribas a number of years, then was an executive of Deutsche Bank, and then as an NED at HSBC Germany. So my focus is clearly financial institutions. As a lawyer, I also had a focus in energy. Right now, I'm sitting on the board of Fnac Darty Group, which is the largest consumer electronics company. We're very proud to have a number of unique selling points to differentiate ourselves from our main competitor, which is Amazon.
Oh,
So,
Amazon is your competitor.
yes.
Big competitor.
Sustainability is the one distinguishing factor. We do a lot there, and I love to serve on that company now for a number of years. It's in all of Western Europe, and we just bought in Italy Unieuro, Euro, however you pronounce it in Italian. Otherwise, I'm mainly sitting in academic institutions, also sitting on research institutions in the banking sector, academic institutions in the area of German, French politics and cooperation mainly.
You're busy.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same.
Daniela Weber-Ray.
Busy lady.
Ana Munoz.
Hola. Yeah, my name is Ana. I'm from Spain, and I've been in this panel a few times, so more or less I know what's coming. I've been serving on boards for a long time, and I'm one of those few who said, I want to be a director 15 or 16 years ago. Because people say, no, they called me. Well, no, I made the first step and said, this is what I want to do. So I've been serving on...
Wait. I want you to talk about that because my first question is, how did you get on your first board? And you're saying you deliberately went after boarding. So how did you do that, and what was your first board?
So I come from the financial world too, from the American financial world, Merrill Lynch. And when I left, I went to, did an MBA, and then I went to work to run a family-owned fund, knowing that fund was investing in listed companies, and when you have more than 5%, you have a right to be on the board. And so obviously the owner was going to those boards, but I was behind preparing and learning a lot about how to do the audit committee, etc. And the owner, it's short, the owner died while I was there, and the daughter, who then became the CEO, said to me, you cannot leave, you have to stay. And I said, okay, I'm staying, but in exchange, when we're done in terms of, when you're sure that I can leave, I would like you to help me be a non-executive director, so an independent one, not representing them anymore, but independent. And that's what happened. She actually introduced me to a company, a chocolate company, listed, who needed someone exactly with my background, so it was actually synchronicity 100%, and that's how I started in a listed board. And to give you the example, I just was walking up with Daniela, saying to her, I had coffee with a lady from Berlin who is preparing to be a board director. Do you think you could meet with her?
Oh, wonderful. This is the kind...
So now she has to meet with her. We said it publicly, so you don't have the choice.
No, but that's the kind of networking that's very, very important.
So anyway, sorry. So I'm on the board now of an industrial company in the energy sector. We have been hit with every tariff that Trump could think of. And the worst one is the taco trade. If I have time, I'll tell you why. Anyway, taco trade, boom. And then I serve on another company that does flavors and fragrances, so totally different and a lot of fun. And I advise two more companies, sounded like a tumor. I advise two more companies on their investments from the financial background.
Wonderful. So what was your first board, Ana, and how did you get on it? And why did you decide to do that?
I don't know why, but I can also remember that I decided I wanted to be in a board. Probably because I worked for the largest bank in Mexico for 26 years, and I was up to here. So I wanted to go, but not to retreat to my home. So I was an appointed director for them, for the subsidiaries and affiliates. Once the financial crisis in the States in 2009 happened, and since we were a Citibank subsidiary, we were we were forced to display the corporate governance policy throughout the bank and the other subsidiaries. So I was appointed to do so. So I thought that I was kind of ready, and I raised my hand once I stepped out of the bank, and as many people wouldn't believe, I had a lot of friends outside of the bank, and they helped me. So you have to call them and tell them that you want to be a non-executive director, and somebody...
No, this is an important point, because people think they will know I'm terrific and that I'm a great executive. They will find me.
No.
No, it doesn't happen. You have to raise your hand, as she did.
Yes.
So you were on the board of a subsidiary.
I worked to form all the committees and the corporate governance of every single company, subsidiary, and affiliate of the bank. And after that, I decided I wanted to be a non-executive director, and Monica Loaiza helped me.
And Monica Loaiza helped.
She was the first one who believed in me.
See? No, but they're pointing fingers to an active strategy. You know, you ask, there's a network, you never told them you were interested in a board seat. You have to say you want to be on a board to somebody who is in a position to be able to entertain that request. Daniela, your first board, and how did it happen?
My very first board was really related to my work as a lawyer. I sat on the German Private Equity and Venture Capital Association at a time when we had big discussions against private equity and venture capital investments in Germany. And they were looking for somebody who is a corporate governance expert and can convince politicians that private equity and venture capital investments can also be done in line with corporate governance thinking. That brought me to the EU Commission, where I advised a lot on governance as well as alternative investments. And on the other side, I was in Germany also always very well known for my work on the Franco-German axis. So I worked a lot on French-German transactions. And one day, BNP Paribas Paris called me to succeed a very famous German gentleman by the name of Kromme. And they needed somebody with this French-German competence and being really well known for governance, and both were my case. So they asked me whether I could join them, and I was a partner at Clifford Chance. I thought that my partners would say no way, because I had many, many tasks at Clifford Chance. But the Paris office insisted and said, if a partner of ours is asked to join BNP Paribas, the top bank board, then you don't say no, you say yes. So I did that alongside my being a partner at Clifford Chance until I then became an executive at Deutsche Bank. I had to leave BNP.
Well, so now you're on boards, not your first. You're now seasoned board directors. Let's answer that question. So all these issues are coming to the board. Let's pretend, for instance, the shareholders of Apple, I've mentioned this before, and Costco decided that the company had to restate its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Then there's a flood somewhere, and your plant there is overwhelmed. Workers, the structure itself, and whatever was inside that plant. And then a border is closed because there is conflict in wherever another subsidiary is located. What do you do first? What does a board do in selecting a priority? Okay? Anybody?
Well, in any event, the board stays calm first,
Breathe.
which is really important, really important. The typical way to proceed would be that the CEO will contact the chairman about those issues, and if there is such accumulation of major issues, there would be an extraordinary board meeting in which those challenges would be discussed one by one. I think we're beyond the time where we can say we put one issue aside and only tackle one of the three issues. We really have to tackle everything at the same time nowadays, because geopolitics have become so disruptive that they are, while they were the last of the risks one would discuss in previous times, but we always discussed them, it is now one of the top priorities. And my take on those geopolitical risks is that you really have to be cautious and not take quick decisions. You shouldn't take sides, for example, in political issues, China, US. You should really think about the impact on your regions. I think the consequence of these developments that we are seeing, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's wars, whether it's tariffs, whether it's, digitalization and all the ESG issues, climate, we will see more of a move into regional competences. It will become so much more important to really understand what happens on the ground. It's not by listening to the radio or TV that you will take any decisions at all. You will have to have really good people on the ground to whom you talk, and you may take localized regional decisions, not to block yourself in other regions of the world. So I think we are seeing already a way of a structure of companies where the regions will be of more of an importance, and not only in crises, but we will want to listen to them directly at the board, which is not something that was necessarily done regularly 10 years ago. But now we have to see those local heads and hear from them on the ground, and we have to be absolutely convinced of their quality.
So your sense is that it's more centralized at the moment in terms of decision making. Anna?
Well, I think that boards now have to act as both as a compass and as an anchor. So
As a compass and an anchor.
the compass,
Speak like this because we don't
Because
hear
they're not hearing.
the compass will take you, to the path that you are looking for, and the anchor gives you that stability.
But wasn't that the traditional definition of a board? To give compass to management?
No,
advice?
just in that time of that you are thinking, there's an urgency or time that you have no time to respond. No, that's what Daniela was saying. You don't have to act or take decisions in that very moment. You have to give that sense of calm in the company. And of course, the company has to have clarity of purpose. But once you've stand, you have to evaluate the materiality of the risks that you are facing in that very moment. Also, you have to whether decide if what is in front of you it's a time of urgency, and if what happened is irreversible. No, in that case you have nothing to do, but you not against that very moment, but just to do something to try to return to your path.
A company has been hacked. The database has disappeared, taken from someone.
So
Is that an emergency?
basically, I would say two things. Following what the CEO said this morning, Marina is right here. We basically normally, unless it's a very, very extreme thing, we're there to be with the CEO, to support the CEO and to help him think and decide. So what we do is we listen to the CEO. And then I think we assess the risk, whether it's how much of a risk are we running here, because that's what we are responsible for the risk. And if it's a huge risk, then we have to act very quickly, despite the German patients. We still have to act quickly. And if not, then we take our time and ask him, can you come back and tell us? But basically, you're ready to Zoom at any time, day or night, if that happens, what you just said, and to listen to what the CEO has to report and what risks are we, being attacked with, what are the risks we're having and how can we make them go away, or at least, make them a little more controllable, which is...
I would add that typically there would be scenario plannings. You would look at, because you don't know when there is a big crisis, you don't know all elements typically. You have to find out, and you don't know in which direction it goes, even without Trump. You don't always know in which direction it goes. So you have scenario plannings, analyses done, very detailed, very often, if it was an issue that was somehow to be foreseen. Floods, for example, are nowadays in some regions, in some companies, absolutely an issue that you look at before. Which of my companies, of my locations, are under risk of particular dryness? I mean, we do that at Fnac Darty. Which of our stores are under risk of flooding? So you would have plans already and would be able to then react.
Okay.
Another point I would like to make is, because you just said we're there for risk. Okay, risk and controls, the classic task of the board and the NEDs. I would say that we're also there to find opportunities in the current geopolitical changes, because we cannot only react on crises, we must also adapt our business models to the new world, and it is a new world. If you're international, which is my assumption. And then you have to look at opportunities, and opportunities, I mean, in particular in Germany, we look at the climate crisis issue always as either we ignore it or we see it as a catastrophe. We can also see it as an opportunity to be first mover on some aspects of climate transition, so as to use our advantage to be better in some areas, find new product lines, new services.
Well, DHL said that, all the companies left, what was it, Afghanistan? No one else was servicing the mailing, the processing of packages, etc. So then they had to hire quickly. That was an opportunity. But somebody else would go, oh my God, you were in Afghanistan as a company. So they took advantage of that, and as they should. What the crises point out is testing a board. Is the business of a board of a company solely to raise what they call shareholder value. They always say this at board meetings. It means got to make money or return investments to our shareholders. And the other is the business of a company, something more. And that question is being driven without their wanting it by what's happening nowadays. So is the business of a company the business plus something else? Is it business with a purpose? Because you heard the CEOs, oh, look at our website, we have this commitment to sustainability and DEI, etc. So, okay, it's there.
Definitely. I mean, if we were only to make money, we're in a society and we are in different markets and we feed a lot of families. So already the nature of business is to do a lot more than just make money and return shareholder value. We have stakeholders, we have regulation. I mean, we're in the middle of it. And it is a big thing that is today's world. So I think we do have a serious responsibility for society, for the people who work for us, for all the stakeholders around us. And each of the companies describe it in a different way and has a different mission, but we definitely are more than that. And I went to the University of Chicago where we made that sentence, Milton Friedman saying, a company is there to only give back to shareholders. It turns out he explained that that's not exactly what he was saying, that we obviously have a responsibility for society and a lot more, and I totally agree that we do.
Well, it really
wait,
depends on the laws.
I need everybody to speak louder because, this is that terrible time of the day, right? So let's pep up,
Yeah. I'm referring to what you said, Anna. I sat for a couple of years at the British Academy in a think tank type of exercise which was called the Future of the Corporation. And while it was an international group of people, it mainly concentrated on changing the English law. And it is very clear that we have very different laws on governance of boards. In England, they come traditionally from a shareholder value approach, which they softened up and now softened up even further. In Germany, we come from a stakeholder value approach. So, of course, you have to serve the shareholders, and then come definitely the employees, as well as other stakeholders like suppliers and customers. And we even incorporated, when I was still sitting on the Commission for the German Corporate Governance Code, we incorporated in the early 20s a clear societal responsibility of boards, which is a very broad term, which goes possibly even beyond the traditional stakeholders to watch.
But has that been redefined, expanded, clarified? If it was there in 1920, what did they mean about
Not in
societal?
1920, in 2020, because in 1920
wasn't born
I
in
wasn't able to sit on it.
I said, were you around in 1920?
No, I think it was changed to the code in 2022.
Okay.
And that really makes a big difference. And I totally agree with Anna, at least that is very much the German thinking. There is a responsibility clearly beyond making profit. What we developed at the British Academy is the 3 Ps, which are also, I wrote a lot about that, they're cited very often now: profit, people, and planet. Yeah? You can not only work on profit, you need profit to maintain your options, but the purpose is really people and planet and society at large, to which the company needs to positively contribute. Yeah? Because many companies in the past made good numbers, but negatively contributed to the climate or to their environment, and we must get away from that unfair distribution of profits because it was all of us paying for the damage and the shareholders getting the profits. And that is not the thinking anymore. Yeah? So we have to find a more balanced approach. You're from the US. In the US, we are in an area where the shareholder value approach is still the strongest.
I know.
Yeah?
I was on a board of a company where that was the mantra. Anyway, so that's how come we were attacked by a separate board of directors. Anna, your thoughts?
Business being just business, I think it's dangerous. You have to have a purpose, of course, and having it will give you the opportunity of also attracting the best talent and to retain it, of course. And otherwise, you will lose the trust of the customers and the community in which you are.
But you don't think that that's fairly recent? You know, I say this because there were food companies in the U.S. whose products were bought primarily by women who were shopping for groceries. It took them longer to put women on boards than other companies that didn't necessarily sell products that were primarily used by women. It used to drive me crazy. So, you know, they don't always go together, okay?
Well, you can find no women, at least in Mexico, on the board of those companies selling makeup.
Yeah.
There are no women
Right.
there. No,
You know,
So-
companies selling makeup and not having a woman on the board,
it's yeah. You can
let alone in
everybody.
senior management. There was a time, and it wasn't that long ago. Okay? So, you guys are seasoned and you're facing all these crises with your fellow directors. What skills do you think are now needed on a board? And I ask that because the average tenure for board directors is about 8 to 10 years. And some hang on a lot longer than others, okay? Past 10 years, you become part of management. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. On the board I was on, we had an opening only because it's actually not funny. The guy next to me died. No, they were considered sort of lifetime appointments, you know, because it's hard for a CEO to tell somebody it's time to go. So some companies have age limits. They have, you know, in terms of tenure, right? Or just general tenure limits. But not all companies do. And in emerging economies especially, they don't. Okay? So what are your thoughts on that? What are the skills new board directors should bring? And what, in your view, is missing?
Well, I think that being really familiar with the company is truly important. So I'm not a fan of those jurisdictions like Switzerland and I think even the UK, where there, in theory, is every year a new election. Well, they're re-elected all the time.
Yeah.
They stay in effect just as long. So I accept that there should be a certain tenure of the boards, and it is good if they are staggered so that not everybody leaves at the same time. I think that's important. But there are really three issues. One is the tenure and the period for re-election. The other is what is the period when you lose your independence, and what is an age limit. Age limits, I think, are really sensible. One must introduce them, in my view, because, as you said, it is so difficult to tell this gentleman or this lady that they're really over time. Yeah? So have an age limit, and then the question is done with. So I think that's easy to settle if you're willing to do it. Maybe different in family companies.
Yeah, we'll go into
in
totally
Germany,
different
so
animals.
that may be very different. Then the independents. Independents, you said they're really part of the board, of the executives.
After a long time
Yeah,
on the board, you become management.
yes.
Okay? And that's the danger.
You have no, yeah, you have definitely no independence. But the skills I think the board members need now is the ability to take decisions with no clarity on what's going on the information that you have. The boards must be now risk-aware leaders because we are surrounded with a lot of risks that you mentioned at the beginning of this panel. And you need to be constructive, let's say, challenger. You have to
A
say
constructive challenger on the board.
on the board. You are the one that has to give the bad news or to say what the CEO and the shareholders don't want to hear. No, they are used, at least in Latin America and Mexico specifically, they are used to have within the board their friends, their compadres, what we say. No, so they always say to them what they really want to hear, not to challenge them. And I think now the board members should be the opposite.
Well, but what are the new skills that are needed on the board? You got AI all over the place.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, there are lots of board directors who are techno-bobos, right? No, I mean, you have a senior executive giving a report to the board about the, tech threats that are coming in. How can they evaluate? How
I agree
can
with
the
you.
board evaluate?
I don't think we need to know about deeply,
Yeah.
but we do need to be up to date. And for that, a skill that I was going to say is, first of all, you have to be ready. And you have to, it's not ready just because I'm a woman and I did this. No. You're ready when you are ready. When Daniela tells you in Berlin, I think you are ready, or when I tell you in Madrid or whatever. What I mean is, readiness means education, means taking some courses where you know the good governance code by heart, etc. So be ready. And then have a lot of curiosity because so many things are going to come your way that you didn't know. Like say me, what did I know about flavors and fragrances? And now I know a lot but you need to be curious and you need to ask and find out and what are the drivers, where are the risks, etc. Then you need a lot of humility because you cross the door of the board and it's not about you. You are not going to save any company. You're there in a collegial, I think you say, so, that everyone is going to decide together and your voice counts, but not because it's you, just because you are in that team with your experience. You need a lot of patience nowadays and you have to have a good computer or an iPad, so you have lots of Zooms, more and more. And you need to be able to stop and reflect and think a lot about your company, your sector, the people. Sometimes you have to tell the CEO, have you considered getting rid of this person? We've been helping and it doesn't work. And sometimes it's the board director who has to say it. So I think you need a lot. You need to be very adaptable these days, very quick, but at the same time, like Daniela was saying before, very calm, because sometimes the crises come 2 or 3 at a time, and you're the one, the board, not only me personally, have to give, calm and reflection and, find the right decision without panic, let's say.
I would like to take up the terms of curiosity from you and constructive challenge from you. I think curiosity is not a legal term, but that is really needed if you want to be on a board. Constructive challenge, Irene, is a term that the EU Commission brought into regulation after the financial markets crisis when they toughened up governance rules for the financial sector, banks and insurance companies. And that toughening up of the governance rules then popped over into the governance of listed companies in general, but it started off as a consequence of the financial markets crisis. Constructive challenge was taken as a word because we had in traditional boards the chairman, always a man, setting the tone and the others possibly not even talking. While they may have had their thoughts, so one of the qualities that the EU Commission thought that they'd write into the governance rules is constructive challenge. Don't accept what others say, in particular, not what the CEO says and the chairman says. Think for yourself and provide constructive challenge. That is really pretty much what also this Thailandese lady described in an earlier meeting. With nice words, not aggressively, because in a board you have this trustful relationship and that humility. I like that term too. But constructive challenge is very important. I would like to get to your points also on all the new topics. It started off with diversity. There was a discussion in Europe whether it is not necessary mandatorily to have a diversity specialist sitting on the board. I always immediately reacted by publications that this is total nonsense. I mean, diversity is an issue of each and every one of us, and why should we have a specialist on that topic sitting on the board? Because the understanding in almost all jurisdictions is that the board is all the people together. They together have to decide, and they together must discuss those issues, and diversity is an issue everybody should bring as a competence of being able to think about diversity to a board, otherwise they are not the right person. The same issue popped up then with climate change. We need a specialist for climate-related issues on the board. While I say climate change, we are all family members, possibly parents, grandparents.
Daniela.
We do take care of climate.
Daniela, sometimes you need a specialist. The response in U.S. companies, maybe not on the board, is to have a chief sustainability officer because you needed that expertise who can then advise senior management and the board as to, the risks, the plans for preventive strategies. And you needed a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, and a lot of American companies did have such a position. Nowadays, some companies, not only in response to the ban imposed by this administration, the current administration, have eliminated that position. Companies that used to be champions of that, and I won't name the companies, it drove me crazy. I gave you an award, and now you take out the position, and who are you as a company? And where was the board on that? That's why I want to bring it.
But that's a very different issue. You're talking about executives.
No.
No, but
where is the board?
When they take
to accept
and of course we need executives that take care of climate issues.
No, she wants to know where was the board when they fired the diversity.
Why did the board
didn't
that direction?
Didn't challenge that decision.
Didn't challenge the CEO and say, and that's how come at Apple, the shareholders themselves held the board and the management accountable by saying, by voting, we want a recommitment. So this is what I'm saying. Where is the board on those companies who retracted initial positions that supposedly defined the company? Companies that reveled in, sustainability and, DEI, and who were recognized for it, all of a sudden, all gone. I mean, this is why both the chancellor and every other speaker talks about backlash. It then spills over to the larger community, right? Outside the countries. And it then becomes sort of an instrument for, it's not good branding at the moment, you know. We won't necessarily do this. So this is what was the argument to the board that made them agree to not commit to what is on their website and what they had said was their priority?
I mean, usually,
Well said.
usually those issues are part of the strategy because climate-related issues are clearly part of the strategy, completely inserted into the strategy. And if you change the strategy in such a way, it needs the discussion in the entire board and it needs a decision of the entire board. When boards let that happen, then we have weak boards. We have weak board members who cannot push back against people who may be too close to the new American thinking, which harms us harms the company itself when we move
Harms
away.
the company, harms the employees, harms your clients, your customers
Totally.
who looked at you in this way, and now you're not that way.
But you know, all this
But I
backlash, I think.
Let's get
I think those companies and the board itself were like what we call in Mexico greenwashing. They are not acting as an effective board. They should have challenged the decision because probably the stakeholders were those who decided that they were retreating. But I think that the company was only using a slogan.
Well, these were huge companies that pulled back. But I should balance that by saying 350 other U.S. companies have said,
Yeah.
we're sticking by this. And they're not renaming, they're not hiding it, they're just saying, I think an example was given by Marina earlier of Salesforce CEO, you know, and there are others who have spoken out, but it's getting rarer and rarer. This is where the board matters.
I was going to tell an anecdote of someone you know well who is not here this year, a member of the Spanish group, because she's sick, but she serves on a big utility board in Spain, and she was the head of the Nomination and Retribution Committee, and the government has a high percentage in the company and wanted a new board director who was a politician who had no clue, just because he's a politician on one of the parties that supports the government. And she publicly, in every paper, we have all read it in Spain, stepped down saying, I am not going to accept this nomination because it's not right. That you need, the word starts with B, right? I mean, that's what you need, you know, someone to have the courage to say, I am not going to accept this, and I'm leaving.
Acting with ethics.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I mean, courage is the right term.
Yeah.
You're using exactly the right term. We need courage very often, not only for publicly standing up, but even within the board. That is what constructive challenge means.
Yep.
Being courageous about standing up against whoever made that proposition of taking away diversity and climate and I don't know what.
What about the committees, the board committees? I mean, in the U.S., committees are very important. You do the decision making based on a committee recommendation. I was on finance and compensation. And those recommendations are serious. And then you go for a general vote of the board. So your committee chairs are very important. And you can ask the right questions.
Yes.
I had a little committee that's, you know, not as important, my third committee. It had to do with contributions the companies made to other organizations. And the first time, my first year, I looked at the list and I go, there's not a single women's organization in here, but you've got a garden club, a horticultural society, you know. And I said, the majority of our customers are women. What message are we sending? We don't give a dime to any women's organizations. That's the wonderful thing about being a director. You can ask. You can ask the right question. And they said, well, why didn't you recommend some? I said, that's not my job.
That's yours.
That is your job, management, management. So if you ask the questions, they are required. So during that time, and it was really important because whatever a board director contributed was matched 3-1.
Totally.
Well, you use the term ask the right question. I would say ask the stupid question. Because very often,
They thought it was a stupid question.
very often, important issues are hidden between complicated terms, complicated presentations, abbreviations, and half of the board doesn't understand it, and nobody asks the question. This is the typical role of the female board members who are not so afraid of a diamond falling from their crown. They ask those stupid questions, which really then lead behind the wall to understand the issue. So asking stupid questions is such an important
I agree,
element
100%.
of board responsibility.
Well, there were
that
4
was-
women in that board of 21, and they said, the guy said, every time you women ask a question, we're shaking. It's like, they became very afraid.
There's
So
nothing,
they
there's
may sound
never
stupid
enough questions. You have to ask all the questions. But going back to the committees, I think that's where the real power leads. And in the Spanish Code of Governance, they have to be led by an independent board director, which makes us very famous, right?
Also makes-
All
And-
committees,
Sorry?
all committees.
Of course, the audit, and it's recommended that the nomination is, and all I said, now I do that, nomination, thank God, not audit anymore, sorry, done it for many years. And that's where a lot of the work gets done. And we've actually, in all the boards I've been, and all my colleagues confirm, we get paid a lot more because we do a lot of work and we ask a lot of questions and see many of the executives. So I agree with you. The power is there, and we have to work. If you want to, actually, if you're going to join a board for the first time with committees, ask to go on the committee. Might not get paid at the beginning,
Yes.
never mind. But that's where you learn the most about the company.
In
I would
Mexico-
even say never go to a board without being on one of the committees. It's simply, you can't really be a serious board member if you're not sitting on one of the committees. I mean, that's one of the things I always try.
I agree.
I thought it's
course.
required. Anna,
Yeah, in Mexico, it's mandatory to be
To join the
chair-
yeah,
committees,
you have to be on a committee.
you have to be in a committee, and also you have an independent board member should chair the committees, all of them. In the regulated industries and as well as for the public ones. But given nowadays the authorities that we have in Mexico, the public companies do whatever they want. But the regulated ones, like the financial sector, they are always chaired by independents.
We mentioned geopolitical crises that make operations difficult now in certain countries. If you recall, when the Russia-Ukraine war, when the Russian takeover of Ukraine occurred, a lot of companies left Russia. When do you think is the right time to exit, for a company to exit a country? And who decides that?
Who decides? Well, I was in such a situation myself because all law firms, I built up in good part our Russian office. I was in charge of the Russian office at a time of, we had to send away a partner and a new partner came in, and I needed to bridge that time. So I knew our Russian office really well, was very attached to it. Like all other German law firms, we had gorgeous Russian offices. We all exited them and made offers to I think we all made offers to the colleagues there to come over, but of course not everybody came over, but many came to Western Europe to do that. But so that is a very tough decision to take.
Yes,
A
for
very tough
any
decision.
company, any board. So is it a board decision based on management recommendation? You know, the conflict began, and companies had to do it very quickly. You either did it quickly, and then they were appropriated by Russians, okay?
We didn't have Russian units, thank God, and I can imagine how quickly that had to be done. In other places where it's more, less, say, urgent, it is a very tough decision, and it's always linked to high cost because you have to pay the people who are, try to close somewhere in France, and then you know what the cost is, the social cost. So the decision is very, very difficult, and I think you need a lot of data, and you cannot take it, other than obviously a war, you cannot take it quickly or based on, if the risk is too high, you have to do it, but you need all the data. You need to analyze it well before you, and the decision is normally the board.
Well, exiting too late is clearly a risk of reputation.
Yeah.
Can be absolutely a risk of reputation. Just to share with you, Irene, because you probably don't know that, you know that many German companies left Russia. And there's one very famous chocolate in Germany which has a slogan, and it didn't exit Russia. And then the 3 words of the slogan were changed by I don't know who was the initiator, and instead of using the word gut, which means good, they said the word blood. Ja? Quadratisch praktisch gut, die Deutschen kennen das. Ja? And that chocolate was under a shitstorm. Terrible, absolutely terrible reputational damage. Yeah. So it is really important in 2 board systems, because I'm sitting on both types. In 2 board systems, it would always be solely the executives to prepare such a decision. And if it is of a certain size, so that it is mandatory or advisable to bring it to the full board of non-executives, it would then go to the non-executives in an extraordinary decision, a meeting perhaps, to decide that. And definitely, very often, very quick decisions are needed, in particular to save lives.
Sure.
Well, now, as you may know, in Mexico we have a security problem. And we are not operating in Russia. But in the bank where I serve, we decided, but it was not the CEO's decision or proposal. It was the board's to move out from one of the states, which is now probably the targeted state in Mexico for
drugs and crime
yes.
and all the things that come.
So we decided to,
exit one of the states.
Exit most of our operations, and the cash operations for sure.
Of course.
But it was proposed by the board, and management had to evaluate the impact.
It came from the board as opposed to management.
Yes. Because it was not from them.
Okay. So now you guys can ask questions if you have any.
Come on, ask us questions, please.
Come to the mic. I'm sure you have questions, comments. Come on.
Yes.
Yes. Mike's there, Narelle.
Thank you. Fascinating conversation and to get into those real world experiences. Narelle Hooper, I wanted to, there's a dilemma I see here, which is the way those organisations respond to those external forces, the political issues. There's the companies who stand their ground and then the others who backslide. And we see the important role business has in terms of community trust. I wonder to what degree, what's going to happen to that community trust in this. This is a response to a circumstance now, and in 4 years there may be something else to respond to. So it just underscores my concern about that fluid foundations that business has, and we're expecting the community to trust us. I'm
Well,
interested in your
No,
thoughts.
it's a good question, Narelle. I kept thinking about Elon Musk's board. Okay? No, because of his political statements and actions when he decided to be a Trump, whatever he was. Tesla stock, and I have Tesla stock, slid. Like, we're talking 74% at one point. And I'm thinking, where's the damn board? And so it wasn't a board member. I think it was a senior officer in the company said, he better start paying attention to the company itself. It's a relatively new company. It is driven by him. But in a more traditional board, you can't put up with that. You cannot have a price drop of your share that dramatic and nobody on the board is saying anything, especially if you have an independent chair. There are consequences. It's shareholder value. It's investors who are going to run away. And he had investors who were beginning to not want to be part of Tesla. It's an extreme version. It's a new company. So, new tech companies have sort of their own different rules. But it shows you in my view, the importance of board action in such a situation.
I mean, we've had in the States other cases. Think of
Enron.
Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes.
yeah,
Well, that's another tech company that was new. New tech companies usually put investors on their board, okay, and usually very, very male, very macho culture. So they are a different type of boards from those that are traditional companies that have been around, established for a long time. Let's take this question.
Shall we answer
Profitability.
shortly? Because look at the number of questions.
She was.
Okay. No, go.
I mean, you raised the issue of community trust, and I think that is exactly what I meant with my very first response. I think we're going to see more decentralized structures and more, even in a legal sense, that the operations can be separated. Because there is sometimes the option of the local people, if it's not life and death issues, which also happens, Afghanistan obviously, but Russia was a political issue. No? And there the option is also perhaps for the people to then separate from the group and be a unit of their own. And that is something I think we are going to see more in far-off regions where we are not so sure of the geopolitical midterm, long-term developments.
Next.
Next question.
Hello. I echo the words of gratitude for this wonderful conversation. My name is Annabel Dumlao. I live in Spain, but was born in the Philippines. I'm a partner at Excellent, the newest member of our mini board. And so we're just 9 shareholders. Nothing so totally pales in comparison to what you must be leading. My question is, out of genuine curiosity, is a board a team?
Is a board a what?
Is the board a team?
Si es un equipo.
Yes.
A team.
It has to be.
Okay.
Has
And if
to
it-
be.
And if okay, so if it is, and it should, what is your role? How do you develop that cohesion when you're independent directors, when you each come from different points of view? How do you harness that? And what's your superpower in doing that? Thanks.
I mean, there are clear legal rules to that. The process is called onboarding. So when you enter a new board as a non-executive, you spend time with all the other board members and the executives, so both sides, executives and non-executives. You get a lot of material to digest about the company. Nowadays, of course, we can do searches also to prepare for the first talks. But there's a lot that is be done, and that is, at least in Europe, prescribed by our regulation for listed companies. Your company is a smaller company. The advice is to do it in a very similar manner. Organized process by the company secretary or whoever is appropriate, with documents first, talks to all the people, and then this relation, this trustful cooperation, this team spirit, which still allows for constructive challenge, is building over time, and they become friends over time. And sometimes it is not good for them to become friends.
Become too friendly.
And to
There's-
recommend to other boards. So you serve on a board with Daniela, and then someone tells you, I need someone who knows about the regulations of this and that. Say, call Daniela. So that's how it works.
In Mexico, it's not mandatory, the onboarding process, but if you are responsible, you ask for those meetings with the executive team and with the other members of the board. And since you've been hopefully assigned to a committee, they are expecting you to be propositive, to provide your experience in whatever they wanted you to deal with.
Most U.S. companies do onboarding.
Yeah.
And they also take you to all the plants or subsidiaries so you get to understand how the company operates. And it is senior management, but you cannot. A friend of mine was on the board of, okay, I won't name the company, and she was very enthusiastic and decided she would meet with all the women senior executives. And she said, she called me up and she says, the CEO was so mad that I did that. I said, excuse me, how would you like it if in your company somebody wanted to talk to your people and didn't inform you? You should have informed him so he doesn't think you're plotting a coup through through senior management. I said, it's called common sense. I said, I know you're being enthusiastic. You wanted to meet all the women in the senior women in the company, but you have to tell the CEO. Okay? Next question.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Rafael from the Philippines, and I sit on the board as an independent director, but it's a public company. And I just like to add to what you said. In the Philippines, we have an organization called ICD, or International Corporate Directors, and they are trained or they are oriented on how to become a corporate director in a public or even a private company. Now, my question is, how can we help corporations, public or private, to onboard more women and come up with a regulation that says a certain percentage should be women? Because in the Philippines, it does not happen. I know in Malaysia, there is. So is it only like the government that can do that?
No. In Australia, that's not what they did. First things first, and I talked to somebody at ICD there, put gender diversity on boards in the corporate governance code. That is like first layer, okay? And that's very doable. Who's going to argue about board diversity, et cetera? When I was advising another company to do this, they said, we are diverse. We have accounting. We have... I almost killed that person. I mean, really? No, but that's a very good first step. It could be, I don't know where the corporate governance code is situated. Is it in the stock exchange? So sometimes you could go to the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commissions. Let me tell you, I have now met with women SECs, heads, of the Securities and Exchange Commissions. One was in Dubai, another was in Thailand, You have to look at the doors. Do that first, okay? What it does is signal that board diversity is a critical component of good corporate governance. And then the stock exchange in Australia said, okay, they put that in, and then they set targets. The stock exchange, not the government.
Yeah, that's the same thing happening in Mexico. We have, of course, this government won't help at all, but we have two stock exchange entities. One of them is managed by men, and we've tried for several years to get help, and they don't even listen. But the other, the CEO is a woman,
I know.
Maria, and she's helping. And since she cannot rule a law, what she is doing is every single company coming to her stock exchange, she proposed the members of the board, and of course she's a member of WCD as well. So she has a lot of candidates. That's what is happening.
Why do you think we do studies of women on boards now for almost 3 decades? It brings light as to what's missing. So you use the data. You could use it for naming, shaming. You could use it to crown companies that do very well. But once you have the data, it's very visible. I also have opened 26 stock exchanges. And I do visuals. Optics matter. And usually it's the first time women, were allowed to open the exchange. So I would invite other women directors, senior executives to join me each time. I did that in the 2 stock exchanges in Mexico. I did it in Bogota. I did it in the Philippines.
Madrid.
I've done the Paris Bourse, the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, etc. Everything matters. The research gives you numbers. I ring the stock exchange with the women to show that we belong there, and it's up to, the corporate governance avenues, like putting it in the corporate governance code. You use all of it. It's not any one step, but it requires us to be proactive about it.
I mean, be proactive is in any event the thing to do, but soft law or hard law is really a matter of culture. In Germany, we tried with a code. I was there. I was the first and only woman on that commission. We tried to introduce, by soft law, diversity, and the companies just laughed at us. I mean, the guys, yeah.
So it took the
So
government
the
law.
law came.
That's why Pilar is
Sometimes
Monica.
it takes the tough way, but in some countries like England also, it's just the stock exchange.
No, it was the commission by Lord Davis. I study all this. I look at what every country does, and we can learn from all of this. Lord Davis was asked by the UK government, he led a commission to look at where are women on boards. And so the study came out, not many, and so an independent commission was created, and they started setting targets, 20%. And then Lord Davis sent letters out to heads of companies saying, this is what we would like to have happen. And he actually visited, he used his own cachet to sort of help drive the numbers. So they went past 20%, then they moved to 30%. They changed their corporate governance code each time, 3 times, to be as rigorous as Australia's, like the stock exchange in Australia. It takes steps, but we have to do whatever it is, okay?
Yeah, just to add something, in the Spanish corporate code, first it was a strong recommendation and also has been going up. And so the listed companies have to either comply or explain. well, the Spanish say comply or complain, because that's what they do, but basically it's comply or explain. And then the explanations about why they didn't have, they were actually, ridiculous. Because what is the explanation for you for not having women? And if they say there are none, it's like, okay, give me a break. So that starts them into the thinking there might be some women who can join. So
That is so
Next question.
Hi, I'm Emmeline. I'm a student in machine learning, and I'm currently developing an AI companion for women going through the menopause transition.
Wow.
Now, I think I'm a little too young to sit on a board right now, but I'd like to know what are some strategies if I want to make this my goal, and I'm not coming from a financial background.
Actually, when I was asking about skills, in one of the NAC, National Association of Corporate Directors meeting, there was this young woman who's very tech savvy. She was the serial entrepreneur. She said, I aimed and I targeted to be on a board. And it's a skill that is so needed if boards would only recognize it. And so she specifically looked at the companies where she felt tech skills were not present in a company that's facing that. And I think that's one of the ways. And financial knowledge, man, you could take lessons, okay? On anything, frankly. But that's something, how to read a spreadsheet, you should know how to do that. I took accounting. I'm an English lit major, but one course I took in accounting has stood me well all these years, okay? So that's why I tell the kids, have a balance of courses that you
But
take.
otherwise, she can come and see me later if you want. Or, I can sit at the table
Very
and
good
all
idea.
of you who want can come, because that's what I do a lot of my time. So
And
happy
create
to
a
tell you
network.
more.
But I would like to add my personal experience of a case like that. I sat on a board, and the chairman rightly decided to have a tech person on the board. She was an excellent person, CFO of a very respected company. She joined the board. In the years she sat on the board, she never opened her mouth, because I assume she simply didn't understand anything about banking. And that is not a good combination. So if you have also some financial background, that's good. And definitely, I think we're going away from only having older people on the boards. There will be more and more younger people, because that is also diversity.
It's also good for the company to have younger voices. Next question.
Here comes
Hello,
the CEO.
ladies. Super inspiring. Thanks for paving the way and being role models for us. I have 2,000 questions to you. I choose two. So one is, typically it's the executive team interacting with the investors, but when would you say the board gets active? Maybe also with regard to kind of steering a bit the way on the composition of investors, or kind of, I don't know, positioning the company. Is there any moment where the board gets in contact with the investors? And my second question, maybe just to tap into your wealth of experience and view on the world. We're going through quite some crisis in Europe right now, in the world, of course, but in Europe specifically, with economy and industry not growing and being very much pressured by not only geopolitics, but trade and all the other stuff. So what's your perspective? Is this a structural thing, or is this a cycle? And what's your perspective on how we're getting out of this as Europe?
You're in Dow Chemical, right? Dow Chemical?
Yes. Thank you.
Well, I can ask at least the first question, Julia. Typically, as you know, as you said, investor talks are not done with the non-executive board members.
I was about to say, I don't know a board that they're very careful which board directors speak to investors.
And nowadays, the independent head of the audit committee may be sometimes with it. But what happens, and what I have seen in action very often, when there is a structure of the shareholders, in particular as regards the institutionals, which is not good for share price development, for example, then I think it is a task of the board to push the CEO and the chairman of the board to think about ways as to improve the shareholder structure. And that is then heard and acted upon. So that is, certainly there's no rule on that issue, but that is definitely done. The second question, I hope.
No, I was going to, Julie, I was
is-
going to give you something on the second question that I thought of, because in one of my boards, it's energy. So because I had the nomination committee, we had to do the board evaluation, and we then ask, would you like to add something else? And a few people said, we would like more training in subjects that are important for our sector, and one was obviously geopolitics. And so we had a great expert coming, we paid for him, to the board to explain to us how it's looking. It's not looking good, definitely not looking good. But it was so important to get someone, a specialist, like we were saying before, giving us a picture. And in my opinion, we should do that a lot more. We should get people who don't give us, about AI and the model of something, but geopolitics. But to make the long story short, not looking good at all for a long time, that's for sure.
Under the German code, it is obligatory to get that training. It's the obligation of the board members to go for it and negotiate with the chairman, the secretary, CEO. They may even go for a budget for training, but at least have regular training, and that is regularly done. But in answer to your question, beyond that, is a challenge. The global megatrends session here was really good, and it looks more like a structural issue to me due to demographics, politics, and climate.
You know, I asked the CEO one time of this engineering company based in Paris, I said, do you fear not having enough women engineers here from France? And he said, no. There are engineers in Singapore. There are women engineers in India. There are women engineers in the Philippines. I can get women engineers anywhere where we have subsidiaries. So that's a point to remember as well. When we're talking about women and where they are, you have the world to tap. I think it's great that boards should have more international members, but that's not the case necessarily. And this is the same for companies that have, like in the U.S., more growth outside of the U.S. than in the U.S. for this company that I know, but not a single international member at all, even from the region that's bringing the most revenues. I think that's bobo. My favorite word. Deborah?
Deborah Ashton, and my background is HR and DEI. What I would like to ask is, many of the boards, even though nowadays when they talk about being empathetic leaders, et cetera, they seem to know that stakeholders, not, if you will, I'm blocking. Shareholders are the functional way to sustain. So stakeholder capitalism. But at the same time, first of all, let me say thank you to Irene, because she helicoptered so many women by having folks to acknowledge the CHROs. My question is, how do you get boards to, in their nomination committee, to understand that folks with diversity backgrounds are not a redundancy of HR, that individuals with diversity backgrounds usually are involved in both marketing, community outreach, and risk management, especially when, if you will, incidents occur related to their, how can I put it, incidents that may occur that are backlash because of the way customers feel they are treated or because of geopolitical things going on, and that many times your folks in DEI are the individuals who could help in those arenas.
So you're saying the board does not acknowledge that? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the boards, when I have talked to executive recruiters, they have said that boards give lip service to the fact that they want DEI, but in fact, they do not do it in practicality.
And that was before even this latest crisis, correct?
Correct.
I'm sorry to say, and we can only talk about American companies. I can only talk about American companies. Even the CHRO, the chief HR officer, wasn't always invited to speak to the boards. And then when we had Me Too happen, when we had Floyd happen, Black Lives Matter happen, then all of a sudden they're asking the HR officer to come. And then in a few boards that I know have been inviting diversity officers to report. I mean, who are you going to get that information from, right? And it's not necessarily something that the CEO wants talked about. Because it shows a lack, okay? That somehow she may not be doing something, but usually a he. So in terms of being recruited to a board, it is rare that it is an HR or DEI.
It is changing because we do need a lot of knowledge.
Well, you and I, we know that.
No, and we do tell headhunters or whatever they're called now, hey, go find people who are good at HR. Of course, they need to know balance sheet, everything else, but we need more and more that knowledge because, the culture of the company, the reputation, the diversity. So it is changing slowly, probably way too slow for your and my desire, but it is changing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recruitment officer.
I'm sure in Germany they have a law for that.
I'd just like to use this opportunity to say one thing. There are all kinds of laws, rules, in Europe at least, about how board members should be chosen, selected, qualification lists, and everything. There are headhunters who claim that they have special departments for board non-executive placements. But in the end, you have to just know the chairman around. Yeah? And if you know the chairman and you are not considered to be a troublemaker, HR may well be a troublemaker, yeah? Then you have a chance.
Yeah.
But it is so practice and the legal understanding as to how it should be are slightly different in most cases.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
thank
see
you.
people coming in. We do have a next session. We went over time. I'm so sorry. We're going to have to close the questions, but we had good questions. Thank you, Ana
Pleasure.
Munoz, Daniela Weber-Ray, Ana Ramos. Ramirez. Okay, it's getting late. So these are very important questions. Go for board seats. Look at that as an opportunity. Look at the countries that have quotas. I'm sorry, I'm going to push that. Look at the countries that have quotas. It doesn't even have to be your country. I know a French woman who serves on a Polish board, a Polish woman who serves on an Italian board. Look at that, okay? It doesn't just have to be in your country. That said, thank you, and we're going to have a general